Michelle Jones, and I am the Career Center Assistant over at Stonebridge High School. Really excited to introduce Ms. Julie O'Brien from ProJet Aviation to you. She is the General Manager and Director of FBO and Operations and Marketing at ProJet Aviation. She's responsible for the daily operations of the FBO, and that stands for Fixed Base Operation at ProJet Aviation Leesburg. Ms. O'Brien manages the client service and line service representatives and also serves as the Director of Marketing, Public Relations, Special Events, and Media Planning. You have a few things that you're doing over there, huh?
A few hats, yeah.
So great. So can you tell us a little bit more about ProJet Aviation and about your role in the business?
Sure. So I'm the GM of ProJet. Fixed Base Operation is really just a fancy name for airplane gas station. We hangar aircraft, we fuel them, we move them, not just the 200 plus aircraft that are based here at Leesburg, but also any transients that fly in from all over the world. You can actually clear customs here. So we have jets and other private aircraft. It's called general aviation, no commercial flights, that come in from all over the world on a daily basis. So my team, my line service team, tows the airplanes, marshals them in, puts them in the hangar, fuels them, and my customer service side takes all of the reservations, handles meet and greets at the aircraft. We do all of the catering, we invoice them. So it's customer service and line service is basically the two departments that make up an FBO.
Great, thank you so much. I was going to ask you about the career clusters and all of the different, you and I had talked about that, ProJet's main cluster would be that transportation, distribution, and logistics, but I know you use so many others. You actually sent me some pictures of all of the different types of industry that really is applied to with aviation. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. So if you wouldn't mind maybe talking a little bit about that.
Yep, I'm happy to talk about that.
Right.
So I think what makes aviation so unique is that people think automatically transportation, but really I can take any cluster and combine it with aviation. So here you're seeing agriculture, like your crop dusters. You're seeing technology and communication, which would be your avionics systems. You get into law and security. So obviously you're talking about your military, your NTSB accident investigators. If you go to another slide, construction, you have to fabricate these aircraft and design the interiors. And so anything like Gulfstream, Boeing, Textron, they're building aircraft, whether it is an airplane or a drone or a space shuttle. Business management, that photo there is actually a photograph of where I am. This is Leesburg Executive Airport, and that picture was taken from a drone at a private jet event that we held here 2 years ago. So that's what all those aircraft are on the ramp. Education. So we'll talk a little bit more about that event and all the money we give away for scholarships that have to do with aviation. Government, that is your NTSB investigators, that's your FAA. There are lobbyists that fight for better aviation rules and regulations. The National Business Aviation Association will fall under that category as well. Hospitality, so that's my world. The one thing that you have to be in this industry is a hospitality gene, especially when you are facing the public every day. That is a picture of a customer service representative, like the many. We have about 7 of them here at ProJet. Marketing and advertising, obviously a big deal in aviation. Private airplanes, private helicopters, they're very sexy, right? So looking at that ad right there, are you advertising the suit, the jet, or the sunglasses? It could be one of any of those things, right? But it does grab your attention. Information would be your air traffic controllers, and that's both in commercial, general, and private aviation, as well as military has air traffic controllers. Science and technology, so that's everybody's favorite right now. The drones, the space shuttles, the space stations. NASA is doing a lot of great things right now. We've got equipment on Mars. So that all falls under the aviation umbrella. Manufacturing would be like General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, some really big names. They build fighter jets, they build tanks, they build aircraft carriers. Transportation and logistics, that's actually how I got into aviation 22 years ago. I was a scheduler and a dispatcher for private helicopters. Did some really cool things during that time, and it totally sucked me into the industry. Health and science. So that helicopter, that yellow and black helicopter right there, that's actually PHI. That's their medevac unit, and they actually live here at Leesburg. They live here 24/7. So that includes the pilots that fly the helicopters and the flight nurses. So inside, that's pretty much a portable emergency room. They're landing at accidents, whether it's a car accident, an ATV accident. They also do a lot of organ donation runs between hospitals. Finance. Well, if you're going to buy a private jet like that, somebody's going to have to finance it, right? So that interior is probably a G4, and that plane runs about $23 million. So financing and investments is a big part of this industry. Human services, totally growing. I actually have a degree in human services. So you can combine your need to change the world, whether that's mission trips, humanitarian relief, social work, delivering food, delivering hurricane disaster relief, whatever it might be. Missions is becoming a larger and larger part of this industry. I think at the expo in the fall, we have 4 or 5 booths completely dedicated to human services.
Speaking of the expo.
That is the expo. That's my baby. This will be our 15th year. It is, it's a pretty miraculous event, really. So that's how I took the social worker in my heart and combined it with my passion for aviation and decided to change the world. So to date, that event has raised over $1.2 million in aviation and flight training scholarship awards to high school students just like yourselves. The event is hosted here at the Leesburg Airport in our corporate hangar. It covers all of those careers we just talked about and many, many more. There are aircraft on static display. There's some aerial demonstrations. We have keynote speakers, one of which this year is a former retired astronaut. We also have a female lead mechanic for American Airlines coming to speak this year. We give away scholarship awards, and there's internship opportunities. So if you're thinking that this might be something you'd be interested in, this is a great place to gather more information and possibly earn a paid internship so you can actually try the career out before deciding what to do beyond high school. The one thing I would add about aviation is that there is literally something for everyone. If you've always loved animals, we do a lot of pilots and PAWs rescue missions. There are veterinarians that fly from location to location because they're specialized. All of our military are in some way, focused on aviation, and all of the branches will be here for the event. If you're into photography, aerial photography and aerial mapping are a big thing. You can get certifications in aviation. So if school just isn't your mojo, it really wasn't mine either. So you can go and get certificates or flight training without having a college degree. You can do 2-year programs like A&P mechanics and avionics technicians. They're 2-year programs. You don't have to go to school forever and ever. And then you've got 4-year degree programs and beyond. If you want to eventually fly the space shuttle, you're going to go to school. Believe me. But there is a little something for everyone. Not every career in aviation has to do with 4 to 6 years of college. It's just not so. So the scholarships, let's talk about that for a hot second. We give away 3 different types of scholarships. They are based on essays. We post over the summer, probably around July, we'll post 3 essay questions. You just have to pick one. You have to pick the one that you think you can answer that speaks to you. We give away flight training scholarships where you actually are going to use those to learn to fly. Then we have monetary scholarships that can be used for any of the things I just talked about, whether it's a certification or a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, or just flight training. Those monetary scholarships can be used for anything aviation. And then we have larger scholarship awards, which are actually school specific. So if Vaughn College of Technology, for instance, gives us $20,000. Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach gives us $20,000. Marywood University, Averett University. Those are very school-specific scholarships. They're big money, but if you win, you have to apply, get accepted to the school, and then they simply credit your student ID account at the college. So those are the 3 types of scholarship awards that we give out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know, it sounds like it may not be a possible thing to win these scholarships, but I know a few years ago when I went to ProJet Aviation and learned about this, I took some information home to one of my neighbors who flies, and now he is one of your interns, Mr. Henson.
Yes.
So it really does happen to Loudoun County students, and he's got a lot of scholarship money for college too. So
it has happened to a lot of students here in Loudoun. Students come from all over, by the way. So students come from Virginia, Maryland, DC, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia to this event. So we keep it regional. Our very first scholarship winner ever, we gave away $2,000, and it was actually a culinary arts student at the Monroe Tech Center, which is now Academies of Loudoun. And he filled out the scholarship essay on a whim because he wasn't feeling the culinary arts thing. He didn't really know what he wanted to do. But his grandpa had been a military pilot, so he was a little passionate about airplanes. So he wrote this just smoking amazing essay. And so when I called the school to tell the principal that he had won, they said, he's not even on the list to come to the event. And I said, well, he's got to be here, because he's got to win his money. So we surprised the students. Students don't know they've won until they're here. They got him on the bus. I think the principal approached him and said, I know that you applied for this scholarship. Are you interested in aviation? And his name was Scott. And Scott said, well, I just don't know. I don't know what I'm interested in. And he's like, well, I have 1 spot left on the bus. Why don't you come with us? And he said, okay. So they got him on the bus. When I called his name, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. There's got to be a mistake. So he even came up to the stage to get the award, and he whispered to me, he's like, this is, I think you made a mistake. And I said, no, I didn't make a mistake, honey. So about a week later, he called me and asked if he could intern with us to kind of learn more. He just didn't know that much about aviation. So he ended up interning with me for 2 years at the front desk. And then he decided he wanted to use that $2,000 to go to Kansas State. At the time, I didn't even know Kansas State had an aviation program. So I was, so I looked into it and I thought, wow, it's a pretty good program. I said, why Kansas? And he said, why not? I said, good. Okay, great. So he went out, he used his money. His instructor ended up calling me about 6 months later, said it was one of the brightest kids they've ever had in their program. Within 6 months, he became the head of their student pilot organization. He came back the following year to represent Kansas State at a booth at this event with a $20,000 scholarship in hand to give to someone else. And this is many years later. He now is a captain with SkyWest Airlines. So that essay changed his life. It changed his whole path. And it gave him passion for something he truly enjoys. So I hope that story motivates you.
That's great. It all seems so glamorous, right? You show us the interior of this beautiful $23 million jet. Was that how much it was?
It was, yeah.
But there've got to be some challenges and some cons. So can you kind of go through some of the pros and cons of working in the aviation industry?
Yeah, so there's always challenges, right? And a lot of them you're not prepared for, just like in any other industry. I mean, this last year was a real kicker, let me tell you. I mean, we went from having the best year ever in the history of the company in 2019 to basically air travel shutting down completely because of COVID. So I was telling Michelle before you guys jumped on that I have, this is all about safety. Air travel is about safety. I have more safety manuals than you would ever want to see. And I've written emergency response plans for 22 years of my career. Nowhere in any of them did it have a chapter on pandemics because who knew? So, we had to redo all of our manuals. We had to shuffle our schedules. We were able to not have to lay anyone off during the pandemic. We kept everybody working. We did reduce some hours. There's struggles like that. There was the safety of my team, of course, because we had to be boots on the ground the entire time, because people that do have their own smaller aircraft still wanted to travel to get their kids from college home, or, it was just it was a lot of coordination that no one had really ever planned for or been through. So I think having a good team in place made us successful. I think having our hearts in the right place to not put anybody out of work, being able to stash some finances in 2019 to cover some of the costs that were unforeseen in 2020, but we are coming back stronger and better for it. And we've learned a lot. So it's a learning curve.
It sounds like it. What are some of the soft skills that you're looking for in new employees? For example, you just talked about having to write a new emergency plan. What are things that you would look for? Writing skills, communication, that kind of thing.
I think communication is key. Regardless of what industry you go into, you have to be able to communicate with people. You have to be able to write it down. You have to be able to speak. You have to learn to have confidence in front of other people. I think those are good skills to learn. I think you should learn them no matter what you decide to do. And when I said you have to have that hospitality gene, for real, especially my customer service representatives that are at the front desk answering phones and meeting and greeting people coming off of these private jets and walking dogs and delivering the catering out to the plane and scooping poop out of the grass. I mean, there are some non-glamorous parts of this. Trying to help people with their kids, that are sick or whatever it might be, running out and helping with the medevac and making sure that the ambulance that is bringing the person to be medevac to a more specialized hospital to make sure all the gates are open. You have to be a multitasker. We can go from making a rental car reservation to fueling 2,000 gallons of jet fuel into an airplane, to literally we've had to run out because someone threw a cigarette in the mulch out front of the terminal and had to grab a fire extinguisher and put a fire out. There's a lot of training, but anybody can do it. But you have to really want to be around people, and you have to really want to help people. I think that's for ProJet and for the FBO business. If you are not a people person and you want to sit in front of a computer in a cubicle, this isn't it. There are jobs in aviation that you could do that, but it's not going to be at ProJet.
It sounds like flexibility is really key too.
Flexibility, multitasking, hospitality, caring. I think it's kind of part of what our corporate culture is. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. Great. It's often difficult for high school students to find internships, job opportunities. Do you have any suggestions for students who are looking to pursue a career in aviation, aside from, of course, the expo, which they're all going to sign up to attend?
Right. Yeah. I think, it was something that I hadn't done or offered until we started doing the expo. There are a lot of companies at the expo. We mark them specifically on the floor plan so people can go talk to those booth vendors. Like Geico Insurance has their own flight department. Who knew, right? And they're located at Dulles. So they hire an intern every year. Sometimes it's for someone that eventually wants to be a corporate pilot. Sometimes it's been for someone that wanted to go into aviation maintenance. And they've actually ended up hiring their interns. I've hired my interns. Some of my interns have gone on to do amazing things. One of them is working for NASA. One of them designed a whole computer program that now we use. Some of my interns have gone on to be way more successful than I am. If there's something that you're interested in, like let's say aviation detailing, it's a huge business. Those private jets get detailed every time they go on a trip. They're shiny. So let's say that's kind of your thing. You've always liked washing cars and you're thinking, well, if I can wash a car, I can wash a jet, right? So I would look into who the local companies are that offer that kind of service, call them, ask them if they offer internships, that you're trying to learn more. Most companies are going to be receptive to that. I would caution, and I tell the other vendors this, I believe interns should get paid. I don't believe in working for free. That's called volunteering, not working. I think there's a place for both. I think I get more out of my interns by paying them, and they also get to build their resume. They're also more dependable because they're getting paid, and it's a real job, whether it's for a month or ongoing for a year. I think you should get paid for your work, and then you should volunteer as a good citizen. That's just the Julie O'Brien theory.
That's great. And students, I thank you, Ms. Comparin, for putting that in the chat. If you all have any questions for Ms. O'Brien, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will ask her those questions. One of the things that I am really interested in hearing from you is your start, your college experience, your community college start. And so I would love for you to share a little bit with students about that and how you kind of got to where you are today.
Sure. So I'm a big believer in destiny. I believe that things happen for a reason, and I believe you use what God gives you. So I really was not a great high school student. I know parents hate it when I say that, but it's true. Like, I'm not going to say I was a straight A student and look how successful I am. I was not. I was an average high school student. And I changed my major 3 times going into community college because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I thought I'd do the obvious thing and be a business major. Hated it. Then as an elective, I took a psychology course, and I thought, well, I really like that. So then I switched over to human services. I got my degree in human services at a 2-year community college, where I learned to thrive in school. All of a sudden, I went from being an average student to really liking it and being interested in it. So you're going to do better at things that interest you, right? Kind of makes sense. So then I went on to a 4-year school as a social work major, and they really fried me out on internships, not paid ones. So that might be where some of that comes from. And they put college interns at that level at some pretty hard places. I worked at battered spouse rape shelters. You work very long hours. It was grueling. I wasn't getting paid. I was still trying to study. So after college, I went into the restaurant business because I had to pay off all that student debt, and fell into aviation completely by accident. Some pilots for a private helicopter charter business came in for lunch a couple times a week when they weren't flying. It just so happened that this chief pilot had fired their scheduler and dispatcher. By that time, I was married and had a 2-year-old. The restaurant business is not real family friendly to that. So I was looking for something different, did not want to go back to social work. So he talked me into coming for an interview at the Frederick Airport in Maryland. So I took a day off and I went there, and I'll admit, we're still friends, but he definitely bamboozled me. He said, I want to show you around and do an interview or whatnot, but can you grab that notebook? Because I'm going to take you to a meeting with me, and then we'll talk when we get back. And I said, well, where are we going? And he said, well, we're going to Philadelphia. And I said, I can't go to Philadelphia. I have a 2-year-old that I have to pick up in, like 4 hours. He said, no, we'll be there in 30 minutes. So that was my first wow moment. Then you get in the helicopter, and it was just the coolest thing I had ever done. I mean, who knew? We cruised into downtown Philadelphia. We were at about the 30th floor. So all these high-rise buildings, we're cruising in between these buildings, and you can see people working at their desk, and they're waving out the window. And of course, nonchalant me, I've never done anything this. I'm like, hey! I thought it was the coolest thing we'd ever done. We rose straight up and landed on a rooftop that had a helipad, and we went into the meeting, and I just took notes and acted like I knew what I was talking about. And we got back in the helicopter after the meeting. I had no idea what they were talking about. We landed back at Frederick. I got out and I said, I'll take it. I mean, it was just the coolest. I didn't even know what it paid. It was the coolest thing I had ever done. and I've been hooked ever since. And then that was a long time ago. It was 22 years ago. So it was prior to 9/11. I was working for that company when 9/11 happened, and that changed aviation forever. And it also put that company out of business because a lot of the business we were doing was in New York, and some of those helipads still have never reopened. So then I was forced to do something completely different and went into full-time marketing and advertising for Clear Channel. Had to go back to school. But my heart was still always in aviation. So many years later, I was able to do an advertising campaign for a jet charter company, and it was a successful campaign. I made them a lot of money. And so they offered me my dream job to be the director of marketing for their aviation company and get the best of all worlds. So I took that. And years later, that company sold. I didn't like the big corporate culture. It was bought by a chain of many FBOs. And then I came to ProJet, and I've been at ProJet now. Well, April Fool's Day will be 13 years at ProJet. So what I would say is, looking back on that whole experience, there were some tough times during those years. But when I look at the expo, for me, that was my destiny, to bring this exciting industry to all of you. And I don't believe that the expo could have ever happened without my social work degree, without my heart to change the world, without wanting to help people. It couldn't have happened without me having to be forced to go into advertising and marketing because I have to market this event. And then obviously my passion for aviation. So I'm able to pull all three of those things together for this one day a year that's changed thousands of students' lives. And I'm super proud of that.
You absolutely should be. I mean, that's fantastic. And what I've heard you say throughout this story is that, you know, you've said yes to opportunities. You've kept yourself open to new things. And also, I hope something that our students take away from this is that success follows passion, right? When you really love what you do, you're going to do well at it because you care about it. And the way that you've made an impact is, you know, the proof is in the pudding right there.
Yeah. Whether you do aviation or something else, love it. Love what you do, because you spend a lot of time at work and you have to put so much energy and so much of your day and so much of your life into whatever it is. Really find what makes you happy and then chase it relentlessly.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? You're welcome to also take off your unmute yourself and ask the question in person, or you can put something into the chat too.
Any questions? I love questions.
Is there anything that I didn't think to ask you about, Ms. O'Brien, that you really want to share with us?
A lot of kids ask some common questions are, let's see, what's the coolest thing I've ever done? Flying into Philadelphia was a pretty cool thing. I also, at one of the expos about 5 years ago, our keynote speaker was a Top Gun pilot who actually bought a Russian MiG and turned it into a racing aircraft. And he actually brought that Russian fighter jet here. It's called an L-13. You can look it up. It's very, very cool. In the middle of the expo, I had no idea. He threw me a flight suit because he was going to do a demo and said, if you ever wanted to fly in one, this is your one and only opportunity. So right there on the spot, I threw everything else out the door on the agenda and got in that thing and flew, and it was awesome. Any questions, guys?
When do the scholarships open up?
When do they?
Yeah, when would they open up to?
So this last year was a little challenging because we had to cancel the event last year, and I just canceled everything all at once. This year, I will say we're prepared to move forward. The event is not until the end of October, but we're going to put the 3 essay questions that you would choose from. We're probably going to have them on the website, I would say by the end of April, soon. So that'll give you a lot of time to play with the question and the answers. I would say run your answers by people you trust, get suggestions, check your grammar. And then probably in July over the summer, we'll actually put the application packets on the website. And so that's when you actually apply and you can attach your essay answers. You can also check like schools that you would be interested in. You don't have to check everything, but you can check everything. And I encourage people to check more than one box because you want to have as many opportunities to win as possible. And then winners are not announced until the event. So you actually have to be registered to attend the event. And you can do that through your school. And when we hit 800 students, we're done. And I'm at about 550 right now already.
So I'm actually going to be in college this fall. I've recently been accepted into Embry-Riddle, and I'm
Good for
going to
you.
be there this fall. I'm really interested in trying to apply for that Embry-Riddle scholarship. I'm not sure if I'd be able to be here on the date of the expo.
So if you've already been accepted to Embry-Riddle,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to let you win their scholarship because they want it to go to a new student. What you can do is you can apply for a monetary award, which can be used anywhere. So like the Greater Washington Business Aviation Association, we call it GWABA. So I had to think about it. You know, they usually give away $5,000 to $10,000. So you could definitely apply for that. And then we would, because you're not here, we would notify you, but you would still have to come home to accept it. But it's worth a Southwest airline ticket to come grab $10,000 for school.
Definitely. Thank you.
And Embry-Riddle has a booth here and they have a recruitment team here. So they'll be all about you coming, believe me.
Awesome.
How do you sign up for the expo?
So you would sign up for the expo with your school. All of the Loudoun County high schools are invited. It's usually, you can probably check with Michelle after the call, but you can go to ProJet Aviation's website. So it's www.projet, no C, it's not project, projetaviation.com. And then there's a tab that says Aviation Expo. And that will link you to who's going to be speaking this year. You can also register there. If for some reason your school wasn't coming, you could register as an individual to attend. There is no charge to attend. It's just that there's limited seating. I can't make the hangar bigger. And it does include lunch. We have lunch sponsored. So because it runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and it's nonstop. So we actually feed you while you're here also. That's a perk.
That is nice. So talk with your Career Center assistant. So either Ms. Barnes, myself, Ms. Caparin, or Chris. Why can I not think of your last name right now? So check with your Career Center assistants. And if they're not sure, then I will get in touch with Ms. O'Brien and find out for you who you should contact at your school.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
So do you make like a lot of connections within the industry? Because for me, at least, like my end goal is the airlines, and like with my current plan, one of the things that's sort of like the hardest, it would be like one of the hardest things is getting hired once you first get your CPL.
So yes, I have a lot of connections. I've helped mentor a lot of people into the right direction. But I will tell you, at the expo, the Airline Pilots Association does have a booth. American Airlines has a booth. And there's a new, you guys are first to know, I just signed the lease today. There's a flight school called ATP. They're a chain across the country. They have, I think, 40 locations. And all they do is flight training for airlines. So instead of going to a regular flight school where you might go, I don't know, every Monday at 4 o'clock, you do ground school, and then every Thursday you've got flight time. This is like straight through. I think it's like a whole month straight through, and all they do is train you to fly for the airlines. And they just signed a lease here at Leesburg. This is their new location. They're going to start here with an office in my building April 1st. So, and they will probably have a booth as well. They just found out about the expo, but yeah, there's a lot of resources out there to help you get the right training that helps you get put into the right first position jobs with the airlines. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay.
So, what's the hardest part about your job? Like, I know, like whenever you do stuff, I know that there are challenges. So I just wanted to know what you find hardest about your job.
That's a good question. I think the hardest part is my responsibility to my team. You know, when you put a line service technician out on the ramp and you've got 4 airplanes departing and 3 incoming, and you're out there with batons and marshaling around propellers and have a lot of moving parts and limousines or sedans pulling onto the ramp, and you're trying to keep them separate from the jets, and somebody's walking their dog and somebody else is loading luggage. There's a lot of moving parts. And so safety is probably the hardest part because I have to put such an emphasis on it, and there's so much training that goes into it. It's only fun till somebody gets hurt, like anything else. So, you know, knock on wood, we have a really great safety record, but it's easy for things to go wrong when people aren't paying attention. So that's one of the reasons that when I hire interns, they always start at the desk in customer service. I would never hire an intern out on the line. There's a lot of risk out there. So yeah, all of the training, we do a lot of training. Anybody else? You guys are really good. Is there a minimum age limit to attend the expo? Yeah, there is. So we say in the paperwork, anybody between the ages of 16 and 22. And we kind of came up with that because that's really when you're on the brink of making college and career decisions. That's when you're starting to try and figure it out. That being said, I have made allowances. We did have a scholarship winner. I think it was Jacob that asked the question about the or Embry-Riddle, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I did have a Virginia Tech aerospace engineering student that was 24 that won a monetary award, and I honored it. And we also had a 13-year-old one year that had already started and almost completed his ground school to fly. So you have to be 16 to get your pilot's license, I think. But we went ahead and honored that, and he used that scholarship money to go on with his flight training. So I have made allowances, but we try to keep it 16 to 22 to really kind of focus on helping you guys make the best decision for you.
Any last questions for Ms. O'Brien?
Do you have any job openings at the moment?
Any travel bans? There are travel bans still everywhere. They're starting to open up a little bit. Canada just opened up a little bit. It seems to go up and down with the rising positive cases in certain places. We do have customs here. So that's kind of how I stay tuned in, is that the US customs officials come in and they'll be like, oh, Switzerland just shut down again, or South Africa just shut down again. So we kind of stay on top of that, but that's kind of the beauty of private general aviation too, whether you're flying a little Cessna 172 or a Learjet. When you fly private, you have more luxuries. You can get in and out easier. You're only traveling with people you know. You don't lose travel time for business. That's why a lot more businesses are doing it right now. So, you know, let's say you and I and 4 of our colleagues work for a banking investment firm. Trying to get all of us together on a commercial plane like American or Southwest to go to the same place and actually sit together so we can talk, probably not going to happen. And even if it could happen, are we really going to want to pull out our financials and discuss them in front of the rest of the airplane? No. So you lose all that travel time. Plus, you got to be at the airport 2 hours early, right? That's always a fun experience. So companies are going private because they can pull right up to the plane. You want to leave at 7:30, pull up to the plane at 7:30. You get on, you can do all your business while you're traveling from here to Houston, whatever it might be. It's like you've still been in the office, and then you get out and you go to the meeting together. So they're getting more done. What might have been a 4-day work trip is now a 1-day work trip. They left at 7 this morning, they're coming back at 8 o'clock tonight, and they got it all done in 1 day. So there's some real benefits to private aviation.
Do you have any job openings right now?
I do not have any job openings right now. We just filled 4 internship positions though. So we do have them. They do happen quite a bit, and anyone can fill out an application and we keep them on file. So if this seems like something you would love to learn more about or do, call ProJet, ask them to email you the application, fill it out, send it back in, and we'll see. I have a lot of interns that started with me in high school, like their junior year, and stayed with me just working evenings and weekends through their junior year, through their senior year, went on as aviation majors in one type or another, and they still come home from college for summer break, Christmas break, spring break, and they're already trained. So it makes it kind of nice for me, because that's when my full-time employees usually want to go on vacation. So it helps fill some of those gaps, and they just work when they're not at school. So we're pretty flexible.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate
My
you sharing your
pleasure.
passion for the aviation industry. Yeah. Any last questions or any thanks to